not a girl who got the Nobel Peace Prize and stood on a stage in December last year. It starts with a girl when she was 11 in Pakistan, where no one knew who she was, no one was listening to her, and she was facing an incredible and overwhelming threat and injustice, right? It's like those small moments that start. I think there's probably a lot of people in this room that feel like you're in the middle of maybe a small moment, you have a bigger vision for what you want to achieve, but maybe you're not quite there yet. Like you see it, but you're not there yet. And so I thought about, what could I share with you this morning from Malala, from her way of seeing the world, the way we see the world from Malala Fund that would be meaningful to you. And so I thought of 3 things that I could share with you today. And the first one is just that history uses the most unlikely people. I think sometimes we think that people that achieve big things, that they start out just incredible, like they're extraordinary from birth, like they just kind of spring fully formed right into the world, like they just always had it. And what I can tell you from working with Malala is that was not the case. It started really small, it started really lonely, it started really difficult. When the Taliban came into her town and shattered her world in this paradise valley that she lived in Pakistan, started saying that girls and women couldn't leave the house, couldn't go to market, couldn't go to school, started bombing schools. She said she had a decision, just as an everyday girl, as a real person, just like you or me. And she said her decision was one of 2 choices. The first was to stay silent and to be killed. The second choice was to speak up and to then be killed. And she, as an everyday person, just like you or me, decided, I'm going to choose the second. So very unlikely, right? How could it be that someone living out in the middle of nowhere in Pakistan could be a voice that would rise up against the Taliban? It's unlikely. Right? How could it be that it's a girl who's 11 who starts blogging for the BBC? Highly unlikely. How could it be that it's a girl living in poverty that the world leaders are listening to today? Highly unlikely. So I would say if she was here today, she would say, don't feel like you're unlikely. You are likely. You can do this. The second thing she would want to share with you is that she doesn't want you to be inspired by her as one girl as you think about the Malala Fund and Malala's work. She wants you to instead to make a decision. Don't just be inspired, make a decision to stand together with millions of girls. Don't just get excited about one girl's story or think she's so incredible. She would say, I'm not. I'm an everyday person that did something extraordinary, and you can too. So stand with the other girls that are like me, the millions of girls around the world who are fighting right now, whose names you don't know, but she wishes you could, just because they want to go to school. They just want to learn. They want to become who they know they can be. And the third thing she would say is, I'm not one, I'm many. She would say that she'd want you to join her in this journey, join her in this cause, not because of her as one individual, but for the millions of girls in developing countries whose voices are overdue and need to be heard. And so when she says this to people, they often ask us, how many? How many are there? And so there are 60 million girls right now today who are out of school. Globally, 60 million. It's a really big number. It's hard to process. It's hard for us, even at the fund, to make sense of. Why are they out of school? It's poverty, it's injustice, it's conflict, which is part of Malala's story with the Taliban. About 40% of kids around the world are out of school because of conflict. Today, like we see in Syria, has everyone been seeing all the news about Syrian refugees? Has that touched you? Has that made you want to do something? Right? Discrimination. No girl or woman in this room has experienced that, I'm sure, right? We have a lot in common with girls in developing countries. We have a sisterhood. We need to stand up for them. If you want to think that this problem is just warlords and bad guys in developing countries, I have news for you that actually it's world leaders that are part of the problem too. There is no agreement today that girls have a right to go to school after the age of 12. 12 years old. And this is in the face of so much data and information that says to us that investing in girls is the best thing we can do. It's the best leverage investment we can make, right? And as I was walking over this morning, I thought about all these stats. You can read them. But I thought about what would I say to a room like this about education. And I feel like at the heart of it, I don't really need to tell you these stats. I think if we were all quiet with ourselves for just a moment, we would know what our lives would look like if we showed up to school at the age of 12 and someone said to us, go home. Like, go home. There's nothing else for you here. There's nothing else for you here. Go home, get married at the age of 13, have your first child at the age of 14. Just live the rest of your life with this vague sense that you could have done something, that you could have been someone. Does anyone in this room have a dream today? Like, do you have a dream of someone you know that you're gonna be, like you're walking towards it, you're not there yet, but you know you can get there? Malala believes that for every girl globally who's living in poverty, that can happen. And that's what's inspired our fight at the Malala Fund. We invest in and advocate for girls' secondary education. What does that mean? It's what happens between the ages of 12 and 18. Like those years that you find yourself, the years that you figure out what you're good at, you start to become an expert at something. Those are the years that girls in developing countries are not getting. And we amplify the voices of girls globally. And this photo I'll share with you because Syria is so much in the news. It's from the border of Syria. I was there with Malala in July. That's where she decided to celebrate her 18th birthday. How'd you spend her 18th birthday? I didn't spend mine like this, but she chose to. We went and opened a school for these girls, 12 miles from the border, about 20 miles from where ISIS is active right now over the Syrian border. We could hear bombs dropping in the valley next to us. These girls are refugees living in informal settlements. She went and opened a school that the Malala Fund built with our local partners. Then she took their voices and she went to go meet the Prime Minister of Lebanon and said, if I'm 18 and I'm just a girl, if I can do more, surely you can do more, and challenged him to do more, and took those girls' voices and brought them to the feet of the people that can make decisions. And that's the heart of her work, and that's the heart of what we do every day at the Malala Fund. We work all over the world. We work in 6 countries. We've put about $3.5 million in our first year, pretty good for an 18-year-old girls organization, I think, into countries where we're working. A lot of them are impacted by conflict, so places like Pakistan, Nigeria, where Boko Haram is active, we work with girls there. Kenya, Jordan and Lebanon, where Syrian refugees are. Sierra Leone, where the Ebola epidemic closed schools. And today we're here, and we're so honored to be part of this community because we have this huge opportunity with the film that's coming out. They're going to show it tonight. I hope you guys are going to go to the screening. Who's going? Is anybody going? I got 3 people going. Guys, come on. Go to the screening tonight if you can make it. Make the time. It will change your life. It will make an impact. So we want this movie to not just be a movie. We want it to be a movement. We want it to raise funds to put girls in school today. We need to go to school in developing countries. We wanted to raise voices so this issue changes for good tomorrow. And we want to use the film as an education tool for students. Much like Students for Selma. Did anyone see Selma or see the students program they did? They took the film to young people all over the world, right, for free, so they could learn about Dr. King. So I'll actually close with Martin Luther King, and this is, I'm at a digital marketing conference and you're looking at this slide and you're like, great, you're putting a letter, a paper letter up at your last slide at a digital marketing conference. And I am, because this letter is really meaningful to Malala and it's really meaningful to all of us at the Malala Fund. When Malala got the Nobel Peace Prize, we went to go meet with the Nobel Committee and they said, are you aware that 50 years exactly before that Dr. Martin Luther King got the Nobel Peace Prize? We said we are. We realize this is sacred ground. It's a sacred ground that she's stepping onto to talk about girls globally. And they asked us, do you want to go see the nominating letters that nominated Dr. King in 1964 to get the Nobel? And we're all history geeks at the Malala Fund, so we said, yes, we really want to see it. So they took us to the back of the Nobel Institute, and I expected them to bring out boxes and boxes of letters. This is Martin Luther King Jr., right? They brought out 2 letters. They only brought out 2 letters. In 1964, only 2 people thought that Dr. King's work was worthy of getting a Nobel Peace Prize. What did we take away from this? We took away from this that often in history, people think that people creating big change had everything in their corner. They had resources, they had people that were together with them, everybody was behind them. It's not the case. It's not the case. It turned out Dr. King, to bring that message to the Nobel stage when he got the Nobel Peace Prize, required every letter. He needed every letter. He needed both letters, or else he wouldn't have had that moment to call the world to attention about the injustices happening in the United States. So what I would say to you is we need every one of you. Malala can't do this alone. She needs you to stand together with her. So we're challenging you today to make a decision to stand with Malala and to bring your talent, your time, your energy, your efforts, your corporations, your businesses, your ideas, your influence online to stand together with Malala. And I hope today you'll see the film. I hope you'll go to malala.org and get engaged. We need you. She can't do this alone. Her unlikely story can become history if you stand together with her, so please stand with Malala. And I'm going to share with you, as I close, the trailer for the film tonight. So if you're on the fence about going, I hope we get you over that line and you decide to stand together with her. Thank you so much.